Okay, good evening, everyone. So, my topic is all about the science fiction, historical background, and characteristics. So, science fiction has proved notoriously difficult to define. It has variously been explained as a combination of romance, science, and prophecy. So, firstly, to call science fiction or SF, a genre causes problems because it does not recognize the hybrid nature of many science fiction works. It is more helpful to think of it as a mode of field where different genres and subgenres intersects. So, the and then there are the issues of science. In the early decades of 20th century, a number of writers attempted to tie this fiction to science and even to use it as a means of promoting scientific knowledge, a position which continues into what has become known as hard science fiction. So this one, so the heated debates uh, um, about the nature of science fiction are usually conducted by its practitioners. So, and this can even be seen as one of the defining characteristics of the field. So, these exchanges often revolve around the status of science fiction, whether it consists of popular or mainstream fiction, despite the fact that such as terms has increasingly lost their meaning in the sheer variety of contemporary published science fiction. So the debates might center on the history and scope science fiction, the wave of feminist science fiction from the 1970s onwards, and also the retros- retrospective construction of a tradition which rehabilitated writers like Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Okay, so as apart from the expansion in the education which established a commercial base for a number of science fiction, writers in Britain, the period from around 1870 through the First World War was one of the extraordinarily rapidly technology change, with widespread use of electricity for the first time, the coming of aeroplanes, and development of the radio and cinema, and the proliferation of of the popular press. So it was also period that saw the emergence of the USA as an imperial player of the world scene, with all the rivalry that carried with the older empires of Europe and Asia. So during these years, we see the emergence of a body of writing with distinct preoccupations and characteristics that remains um, recognizable, commercially viable, and sometimes very lucrative features of the culture industry. So this body of work became more known as science fiction. So this this con um the origins of science fiction. So um a very short introduction cannot offer a history of science fiction, nor does it need to, since a number of excellent histories are currently in print. So instead, it will attempt to tie the selected examples to their different historical moments to demonstrate how science fiction has always been an evolving mode. So um, there is extensive debate open with science fiction began. So some histories have extended their reach back as far as Lucian of Samosata's a true story from a second century, which describes a voyage into space and a form of interplanetary war. So, other historians take their starting points in the Renaissance, which work like Thomas More Utopia in 1516 and Francis Godwin's The Man in the Moon in 1638, or in the Industrial Revolution with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in 1818. So, two other starting points have been muted and late 19th century from around 1870 and the early 20th century when labels like science fiction were first used. So 20th century here when um 20th century later position confuses this descriptive labeling with the sets of narrative practices which would the which would necessitate um, necessitate such as descriptions. So okay, so science fiction across media. So war games were a special case with their own history stretching back to military rehearsals in 19th century. So this um, this we shall see in the final chapter of the science fiction works in 1970, and especially films have produced a whole range of products under a common franchise. So introduction will focus primarily on the print fiction, but also on the science fiction twin medium, the cinema. So the no sooner had film been invented that experiments began with science fiction subjects such as Georges Millie's trip to the moon of 1902. So the evolutions of this two media has followed such as parallel lines that since the Second World War, many science fiction novels have received film in adaptations. Okay, so let's move on to the characteristics of science fiction. So science fiction is one of the most imaginative and thought-provoking genres, often exploring themes and ideas about technology, humanity, and the future. Though science fiction can vary greatly in tone, style, and subject matter, so there are certain defining characteristics and that set it apart from other literary genres. Below are five essential characteristics that make science fiction what it is. So first is the f- the futuristic technology and scientific advancement. The next, alternative realities and world building, explorations of human nature and identity. Next is space exploration and time travel, societal commentary and ethical questions. So let's move on. So first we have the futuristic technology and scientific advancement. So at the heat of most science fiction stories in the exploration of futuristic technology or scientific advancement, whether it's faster than light space travel, artificial intelligence, or advanced weaponry, science fiction thrives on imagining how technology could evolve and shape the future. So these technologies may be speculative, but are often rooted in current scientific knowledge or the natural progression of technological development. So for example, it works like Isaac I Asimov's I. Robot, artificial intelligence, and robotics are key, exploring the moral and ethical dilemmas of future societies. Similarly, space explorations in works like Arthur C. Clarke's 2001, A Space of Odyssey, offers a deep reflection of human evolutions and our space in the universe. Okay, next is the alternative realities and world building. One of the most compelling aspects of science fiction it is its ability to create alternative realities of worlds that operate under different physical laws, cultures, and political structures. So these worlds often reflect the author's commentary on real-world issues like government, economy, and societal structures, but they exist in a speculative space. So take Frank Herbert's um, Dune, for example, so the richly constructed world of Arrakis, which with its unique ecology and political intrigue, allows for complex storytelling and storytelling that would be difficult to achieve in a traditional setting. Similarly, the dystopian societies like those seen in the Hunger Games or Brave New World offer alternative realities that comment on societal trends and their possible outcomes. Next, we have the societal this the soc- the space travel and social commentary. Okay, so, space travel and time travel are classic hallmarks of science fiction. So, these elements are often used to push the boundaries of human experience, taking characteristics, and um, taking character, taking characters and readers into the unknown, whether it's journeying to other galaxies or exploring the implications of time paradoxes. These themes allow of high stakes drama and mind bending plots. So in H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, so the idea of traveling through time allows from commentary on both the distant future and the consequences industrialization. So similarly, Star Trek has long been celebrated for its imaginative explorations of space. So, uniting futuristic technology with philosophical questions about explorations and discovery. Okay, so let's proceed to the proponents of science fiction. So, science fiction writers often seek out new scientific and technical developments in order to prognosticate freely the techno-social exchange that will shock the readers' sense of cultural propriety and expand their consciousness. So, this approach was central to the work of H.G. Wells, a founder of the genre, and likely it is the greatest writer. So Wells was an ardent student of the 19th century of Charles Darwin's theory of evolutions, earned him the epithet Darwin's bulldog. So Wells' literary career gives ample evidence of science fiction, latent radicalism, its affinity for aggressive satire, and its utopian political agendas as well as their prediction of technological destruction. So this dark dystopian side can be seen especially in the work of T.H. Huxley's grandson, Aldous Huxley, who was a social satirist, advocate of psy- psychedelic drugs, and the author of the dystopian classic Brave New World in 1932. So the sense of dread was also cultivated by H.P. Lovecraft, who invented the famous Necronomicon, an imaginary book of knowledge. So, fictitious that any scientist who dares to read it succumbs to madness. So one on a more personal level, the works of Philip K. Dick, often adapted for film, present metaphysical conundrums about identity, humanity, and the nature of reality. Perhaps bleakest of all. So the English philosopher Olaf Stapledon's mind-stretching novels pictures um, of all human history as a frail passing bubble in the gold galactic stream of space and and time. So okay, so by the science fiction in the modern era, so by the 21st century, science fiction had become much more than a literary genre, and its avid followers and practitioners continued thriving worldwide subculture. So fans felish the seemingly endless variety of science fiction related products and these themes, including books, movies, television shows, and computer games, magazines, paintings, comics, and increasingly collectible figurines, mga websites, DVDs, and toy weaponry. So they frequently held well attended, well organized conventions at which costumes were worn, handicrafts sold, and folk songs sung. Okay, so about the author, which is Philip Reeve. So Philip Reeve was born and raised in Brighton, worked in bookshops, and produced and directed a number of no-budget theater projects. So then he began illustrating children's books, including the best-selling Horrible Histories, Murderous Maths, and Dead famous series. So Reeve had been writing stories since he was 5 years old, but Mortal Engines was the first to be published and went on to win the Blue Peter Book of the Year. And he was also written Here Lies Arthur, the Larklight trilogy, and the Fever Crumb series since 2013. He has worked with author and illustrator with Sarah McIntyre, and their books together includes Bugs and Frozen North and the Legend of Kevin. So Philip lives in Dartmoor with his wife and son, and his interests are walking, drawing, writing, and reading.